People of Earth, it is I, your Technicolor totalitarian tintometer,
for business yet.
Al, speaking to you across time and space about color. No, not that kind of color. This is the 1940s. Color's a beautiful way of illustrating a story. Its presence and absence marks out what is important. Its radiance gives life and meaning to a scene. Devoid of color, a scene is bathed in a different context. Color is often used for typical gameplay cues. Anything that is red will probably go boom. Unless it's a car, in which case, red ones go faster, as we all know. Color and gaming have gone hand in hand all the way. Video gaming being a primarily visual medium. Even in the antecedents of video games, such as the German Kriegspiel, you'd find teams drawn up in colors familiar to most gamers of the 90s to early 2000s, before everything became brown. No, not that kind of brown. Jesus Christ. So what's the point of color? Color separates friend and foe, shows you what to pick up or blow up. Imagine how a health pack would look different in black and white. In fact, early games usually were black and white, till we went up to a handful of colors, and now more colors than filler in an episode of Dragon Ball Z. Color breathes life with its presence or absence, giving a scene volume, meaning, character. Colors are shorthand for characterization, particularly the colors red and blue. Given the massive influence of Japan in video gaming, it is no coincidence that red and blue are often divides, originating in their beliefs in demons or oni, the calmer being blue and the angrier being red. Hell, this could just be a common consideration of color. We have red blood, while blue sky often means fair weather. What I'm saying is, it could just be an instinctual thing. Whatever the reason, red usually signifies impulse, anger, danger, fire, and blue means cold, consideration, calm, and deliberation. We see this in Mass Effect, with Shepard's choices labeled accordingly, except for the ending. Fuck you, BioWare, fuck you, BioWare, fuck you! And the coloration of some of our favorite characters. Dante and Virgil are an easy and obvious choice. The red brother, feeding off and feeding into his emotions, while the blue focuses on logic and precision, failing when his emotions overcome him.
You showed up.
We can also look at Kratos, a character whose only true emotion is rage. The rest of his emotional spectrum plain as his ashen skin. Unfortunately, that's about all there is to him. And shit, even his rage mode desaturates everything till it's all red and white. But hey, points for trying! It's fascinating when these color-based expectations are played with. In Far Cry, our hero is dressed in blue, while his brother, the military expert of dying, is killed off as unceremoniously as anyone else wearing a red shirt in Star Trek. Star Trek? Oh yeah, I went there, motherfucker! As the game progresses, we see Jason become just as, if not more depraved than Vast. What is for the player a wish-fulfillment fantasy is something for Jason so wild that he becomes lost in the ecstasy of drugs and murder, becoming more red than blue. His hands permanently stayed with the bloody life of his crimson-colored attackers. As Vast says, he is fucked. Even if he leaves alive, there is no going back to who he was. Though his shirt might be blue, Jason is red all over now. Another game is Bioshock Infinite. Beginning with clear blue skies, your companion, Elizabeth, wears a whole heap of blue. In some ways, this calls upon the ideal of the Disney princess. In other ways, I suppose, the Virgin Mary. Blue is a color of royalty, purity, calm. On the other hand, your fearsome enemies, the Vox Populi, are entirely decked out in red. While Comstock's forces are also your enemies, they're ultimately bent on order. The Vox Populi are much more violent, and they're clearly dipping their feet in the same can as other Marxist-inspired revolutionaries in the real world, murderers such as the Khmer Rouge. But enough about red and blue.
This party's getting crazy. Let's rock.
Color is a way of characterizing a scene, a level, a game. Think of how immediate the difference is between Far Cry 3 and its add-on, Blood Dragon. The lurid, glitzy, and kind of filthy neon lighting makes a game seem immediately 80s, giving it a nostalgic vibe that calls back to all those kinds of movies, all the more befitting the casting of Michael Biehn as Rex Colt. Or how about Limbo? Considering how vividly coloured our pixelated powers have been over the years, what is more purgatorial than an endless expanse of black and white? No colour, no light. All emotion desaturated into oblivion. Colour is an incredibly important tool that developers use, so it's a shame to see so many of them using it badly. We've seen a recent phenomenon over the past few years, where many games that try be realistic automatically become grey-brown. And no, they're not all set in the Middle East. And no, the Middle East isn't grey-brown. Just Google it if you don't believe me. This isn't always a bad thing. The lack of colour can make its appearance when it comes all the more welcoming, like with the odd jungle level, where it can fit the theme, say, if a game is supposed to be retro like Resistance. But most of the time it's a lazy way for developers to cover the fact that they couldn't be bothered to properly code light diffusion, particle effects and so on and so forth. It's fucking ugly as hell! Compare some shooters to Mirror's Edge, a game whose stark whites highlight the free-running nature of the game, the open sky, with intentional splashes of colour, all show how free this game lets you be, or at least the idea behind the freedom. How different is this then to the average vomit-coloured military shooter? What kind of joy should we find in a game that uses colour not to create mood, but to hide the ineptitude of its creators? Shame. Shame on all of you that make games like this. Just as colour is used to designate factions, colour is also used to tell you about the state of the world. Look at the difference between Fallout 3 and New Vegas. Both run on the same version of the Gamebryo engine, but they have one immediately striking difference. Fallout 3 is covered in a tint that would make the Wachowskis go green with envy, in a move that could be described as the Hulk pissed on all our filters. Fallout 3 is sickly green no matter where you go, inside and out. This makes some sense, since the area is supposed to be slightly irradiated, and based on 50s pop cultural science, radiation is green, right? Wrong! But hell if the effect wasn't noticeable. Problem was it made the place too bleak, too depressing, it was too omnipresent. Maybe that was the point, but drowning my sorrows in alcohol and Xanax means I'm probably playing the wrong game. New Vegas has no such filters, allowing you to take in the Mojave in all its mutated glory. Both games begin with a brilliantly blinding entry into the world, where the screen flares in an appropriate way of illustrating your character's eyes adjusting to the light and hailing your entry into the world of Fallout. Color can also be used as gameplay. The examples, while numerous, are limited in their applications. One that I'd like to show is Metal Gear Solid 4. Where, when you could play the game, Snake's wonderfully mislabeled Octo Camo let him instantly change his colour to his surroundings, using science! But the most triumphant example of colour as theme would be Deus Ex, Human Revolution. Not as in your face as Blood Dragon or Mirror's Edge, the colours used in this game are both a nod to the film noir genre and to Renaissance painting, specifically the chiaroscuro and sfumato techniques. This accentuates the cyber-Renaissance aesthetic of the game, underscoring both the idea of this time as one of a fundamental change in how we conceptualize humanity, and highlighting the violent undercurrents that push this technological change, something that happened in the real Renaissance. The transhumanist ideologies represented in the game are but a cultural evolution of the Renaissance's humanist schools of thought. This was shown to us through a very subdued black gold, or piss-coloured filter. Whether you liked it or not, you can't not admit that the filter worked in some way. Now, it doesn't matter if your game is filled with colour, over or undersaturated. Players and creators alike need to understand, even if only on an intuitive level, how colour and light build a game. Objects that flash tell you, pick me up. The screen, desaturating when you're damaged, showing you that you are in fact hurt. Or that big bloody ring that you tend to see in most military shooters. Sure, it's a pain in the ass, but hey, it's obvious, isn't it? Color is a tool, mediated through technique, breathing life into a game. It characterizes environments and people, giving you a shorthand or key as to who and what will act in which way. Now, why is that? Because color is a cue for characters, for places, for all sorts of things. Color is a motif, used to describe what is to come. Colors can make a player dread a section of a game through their familiarity, or remind them of an approaching enemy. Color is character. Developers can twist our expectations of color, like in Far Cry 3, or they can use color to set the tone of the game, in subtle or indiscreet methods. Color is often abused, desaturated in the name of easy development. And it's really a shame. We're at a stage where our technology is catching up on our wildest dreams, and even with something as simple as chromatic diversity, we're still selling ourselves short. Color is a tool which should not be neglected. Its applications, many. Its effects, diverse. And when used properly, it can inspire many feelings, or take them away. Lock you in a moment, both ephemeral and eternal.
You see a young girl, blue skirt? No?
No. But I'm without an escort if you're looking to pass the time.
Jackpot.